Bueno, el siguiente ponente es un colaborador de Merck, se llama Baptiste y entonces deduzco que su charla va a ser en inglés, con lo que le voy a introducir en inglés, si nos importa. He is Baptiste Nemal. He joined Merck in 2010 after his PhD thesis in molecular and cellular biology at the University of Nice. He studied the physiological role of the prion protein. To achieve this, he used several techniques such as flow cytometry, confocal microscopy, immunohistochemistry, Western blot, protein expression, and purification. He started at Merck as a business developer of bioscience product in France. Since 2016, he is a research technology specialist responsible for protein portfolio in France, Spain, and Portugal. His talk today has the title Duolink, the new standard in protein interaction studies. Please, Baptiste, whenever you want, you can start your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you this nice nice innovation to study protein-protein interaction. So yeah, I'm going to present it. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
I think it works. Yes, okay. I'm just going to close my webcam to avoid connection issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think it's better like that. Okay, good. I'm going to pass in full screen. Okay. So yeah, don't hesitate to ask me question during the presentation. But of course, you can also add your question in the chat, and I will answer at the end if we have time.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, so the proximity ligation assay. So I'm going to introduce the technology, so how it works, what you need to do to start an experiment. I'm going to share with you some example of applications, some articles, scientific articles, and what we have developed recently linked to the new PLA techniques and how to work with Duolink. So just quickly, a short history of the Duolink technology, just to say that it has been developed by the Olink company in 2007. Then it has been purchased by Sigma Aldrich, and then Sigma Aldrich has been bought by Millipore Sigma by Merck in Europe. And so just to say that it's still an innovation. But now it's an old technique, and you can be fully confident because we have more than 1,000 publications with this technology. So I'm going to share a short video. I hope it will work. Just to explain the principle of the technology.
Baptiste, I don't know if is your intention, but we cannot hear the video that you are projecting. Is that correct?
Ah, okay, you don't have a sound. Okay, so I'm going to describe just after with
Exactly.
my.
We can only see the images, but not
I
the
thought
audio.
you had the comments.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. So
You
just the last
can
step, so the
describe it.
detection part.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to describe just after I have just one slide. Yeah. So yeah, you have so finally you have seen the concept, but without comments. So this is exactly the same with my comments. So yeah, as you saw in the video, if you want to study a protein-protein interaction, you will add primary antibody raised in 2 different species. Then you will add probes, so secondary antibody with DNA probes, plus and minus. And if you have proximity, you will have a hybridization of these 2 probes. Then you have a ligation step. And then you have an amplification of this rolling circle DNA. So you have a rolling circle amplification, thousands and thousands of copies of this sequence. And then the last step is just to detect with the fluorescence probe this specific sequence amplified. So I think the key thing to understand is the fact that we will amplify the signal. So this is the key thing for this innovative technology. So you can use it to study protein-protein interaction. So usually you use Duolink for that. You can also use Duolink for protein modification studies, like phosphorylation. So in this case, you have a primary antibody against phosphorylation and one against total protein. And you can also use this technology just to improve and to increase the sensitivity of the protein detection. So particularly if you have a low amount of protein expressed. So this is the main features of this technology. So I think one of the interesting part is you will be able to localize the interaction on microscopy. You don't need to overexpress. You can work with endogenous protein level. So you don't need to overexpress because you have an amplification. It's highly specific because you use 2 antibodies. You don't need specific equipment. Just a classic immunofluorescence microscope is okay. And the procedure and the protocol is relatively simple. You just need 1 day to do an experiment. And so we can consider that you will increase the signal up to 1,000-fold compared to a classic immunofluorescence detection. So if we quickly compare with the other classic method to study protein-protein interaction, so probably the most famous one is the co-IP or the IP. So the problem here is if you have a very weak interaction, you will not be able to see your interaction with a classic co-IP. And usually you need to overexpress your protein to see something. And other thing, you are not able to localize your interaction with a IP or co-IP. With a FRET is a bit better in terms of localization and sensitivity, but you always need to do some genetic modification. So yeah, it's a long preparation to do some FRET experiment in your lab. So with Duolink, you can localize, you can quantify, you can work with very low amount of protein. It's very high sensitive, and you can fix. You will work with fixed cells and tissue. So I'm going to share now with you some example, but just to say that today it's used in research, it's used in preclinical, and it's used in clinical studies. So now some example. So first of all, it's an article published in 2015 to study EGFR interaction and signaling associated protein complex involved in human cancers. So they study the EGFR and they particularly study the phosphorylation of the tyrosine 1068 and the interaction of the EGFR and GRB2. So this signaling pathway is very well known to be involved in some specific cancer like pancreatic cancer. And they know that the erlotinib is a very well-known drug to inhibit this pathway, but they didn't know how it works exactly on the impact of the interaction between GRB2 and EGFR. So what they did, they just start with to see on on the PC9 cell line that due to express constitutively active EGFR mutation. So sorry. So in red, you can see the complex between EGFR and GRB2. And as you can see on the control, on the first control, you have a very high interaction between EGFR and GRB2. You are not able to see some dots because you have a strong interaction between EGFR and GRB2. And when you apply the increasing concentration of erlotinib, you will disrupt this interaction, as you can see on the picture. And the disruption of the complex EGFR and GRB2 is directly linked to the decreasing of the phosphorylation of the tyrosine 1068 on the EGFR. So it was very interesting to see that on cells first, and then try to do to see if they are able to see the same on cell line xenograph and on patient-derived xenograph as well. And as you can see, it's a very good result here because you have also on the EGFR mutation and wild type, you can see the difference of interaction between EGFR and GRB2. And you can see that you will recover a normal interaction by using the erlotinib. And just another example, because of course we have more than 1,000 articles, but this one I think it's interesting because they try to use the concept of this technology to study protein DNA interaction. So just to share with you that it's also possible to to do this kind of study, protein DNA interaction. So how does it work in this case? In this case, they construct a DNA probe linked to biotin to detect specifically a DNA sequence. And they detect this sequence by using an anti-biotin primary antibody. On the other side, they use a primary antibody against the methylation of the histone H3. And so they were able to see this interaction first and this regulation of this promoter. And of course, one of the most important points is they were able to localize this regulation of this promoter. And you can see here on the human coronary artery slice. So yeah, it was a very important paper and very famous one using Duolink. So yes, just to say that if you want to study protein DNA interaction, it's also possible with Duolink. So in terms of innovations, we just tried since 2018 to taking Duolink to the next level by using Duolink on flow cytometry and by using Duolink with multicolor kit. So yeah, one of the good points for the Duolink is you are able to localize, of course, but it's only by microscopy. But the limitation of microscopy is the statistical aspect. I mean, when you want to quantify your interaction, it's often subjective because you do it by yourself, you use some software, but you don't have a lot of data. So it's not very really able, I would say, to do quantification by microscopy. So in this case, of course, you can use flow cytometry. So you will not have the localization aspect, but you will analyze thousands to millions of cells. And so you will have a greater statistical power. So you can use a flow cytometry kit to do exactly the same analysis. I mean, protein interaction or protein modification like phosphorylation. So you can do exactly the same experiment. And in this case, you will have a dedicated flow PLA kit, depending of the color you want to see. So red, green, orange, and far red. So it's not exactly the same kit, but it's a very close protocol to microscopy. So yeah, another innovation is related to multicolor. So what we try to do, the other thing we try to do is to see if we are able to study different protein interaction of phosphorylation at the same time. So today, thanks to these new kits, we are able to see and to localize up to 4 interactions on the same sample. So on this example, you have in yellow the interaction between EGFR and R2. You have in green the phosphorylation of EGFR, and in red, the phosphorylation of R2. So this is something you can you can do also now in your lab. The main difference is you will link directly the probe to the primary antibody. So you don't use here the secondary antibody because it's impossible. We don't have a it's impossible to have a 2-enose secondary antibody. So you will directly link the probe to the primary antibody thanks to a probe maker kit. So yeah, just an example of what you can achieve with this kind of multicolor kit. So very nice picture here with very clear dot. And for each dot, you have one interaction, and so interaction or phosphorylation. So now how to work with Duolink. I mean, if you want to start, what you need to do, what is the protocol? So you will see it's very close to a classic immunofluorescence. So you prepare your sample on slides, on plate, as you prefer. Then you will fix the cells and wash and permeabilize and block. So as a classic immunofluorescence. Then you will add primary antibodies. You wash. You will add the plus and minus PLA probes. You wash. Ligation step, and amplification and detection step on the same step. So everything is on the protocol in terms of time, etc. Just for the cytometry, the flow cytometry kit, you will add an extra step. I mean, you will separate the amplification step to the detection step. Because clearly cytometry is has the highest sensitivity. So you can be able to play on the amplification time to limit and to adapt the signal to your experiment. And then just you can read. So just to say that we have also a specific software to do quantification, but you can also use a free software like ImageG, a famous one to use and to analyze and quantify on microscopy. Okay, so if you want to start a Duolink experiment in your lab, what you need, we recommend in this case to buy the starter kit because you have everything to do your first experiment, except, of course, the primary antibodies. But the only thing is your primary antibodies has to be raised in mouse, rabbit, or goat. So in this case, you have one primary antibody in mouse, for example, one in rabbit, and you take the kit, anti-mouse rabbit kit, or mouse goat or rabbit goat. You have 2 colors for detection, red or orange, and you can do 30 reactions, 40 microliter for each. Or if you have another primary antibody, SPACY, or if you are more comfortable with the technology, you can buy directly separately the different components you need to do the experiment. And yes, of course, if your primary antibody is not mouse, rabbit, goat, or human now. You can, for example, you have a very good primary antibody raised in chicken. You can use a probe maker kit. So in this case, you will directly link the probe to the primary antibody. So you don't have secondary antibody. So you need to add an extra step here. But just to say that, yeah, if you have a primary antibody in another species, you can also do a dual-link experiment. So yeah, that's it for the dual-link. Of course, what is very important is to have a very good primary antibodies to do a dual-link experiment as a whole immunodetection experiment. So just if you search a very good primary antibodies to do that, just to let you know that we have PLA validated antibodies. So in this case, it's just the best configuration for you because you will be sure it will be validated for this application. If your primary antibody is not validated in PLA, you can also choose a primary antibody validated for immunofluorescence. It's a minimum. You can go to the Antibody Explorer on our website to just search your target protein and just select proximity ligation assay in the application. And just to finish on primary antibodies, because finally, if it's for dual-link, if it's for Western blot or immunofluorescence, the quality of the primary antibody is key for all this immunodetection experiment. The thing is today, due to the different technique to produce an antibody, so I mean you have polyclonal antibody and monoclonal antibody, you have for both advantages and some limitation. So for polyclonal, you have the choice of the species. You have a very high target affinity, but you have a low specificity and low reproducibility. I mean, the problem with polyclonal is if you change the batch, you don't have exactly the same pool of antibodies, and so you will not have exactly the same result. So I'm sure you already have had this problem when you change a batch of polyclonal antibodies. With monoclonal, it's really more specific, reproducible, but you have a limitation in terms of species. So if you have only mouse or rabbit, and sometimes some monoclonal are not very efficient to detect a very small amount of protein. So the affinity is lower than polyclonal. So that's why we launched last year a new generation of antibodies called ZoomAb. So it's a monoclonal recombinant antibodies. So what we do here is just to base our production on the DNA sequence. So we just need to take the sequence and we produce the antibodies, we immortalized B cells. Then we have a strong clonal selection with high affinity screening. So which means we're able to produce monoclonal antibodies with a very high affinity. So we are able to combine both advantages of polyclonal and monoclonal antibodies. So yeah, it's just the best antibody on the market today. We have around 300 targets today. So it's not a lot, but we are still continue to develop new ZoomAb antibodies. So just have a look on sigmaaldrich.com/ZoomAb if you are able to find your own target, and don't hesitate to test it. We have a small pack size for each ZoomAb. And yeah, I think it's very important to say that with this kind of antibody, you can buy an antibody today, a ZoomAb antibody today. You can buy a ZoomAb antibody in 5 years. You will have exactly the same result. So I think a key point is the reproducibility of this new generation of antibodies. So regarding dual-link, you will find all information, I mean protocol, abstract, a short video with the sound this time on the sigmaaldrich.com/dual-link. Don't hesitate to go on this page and to ask us if you need more details or if you want to try it in your lab. So thank you. And I don't know if you have time for question. Yeah, 5 minutes.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Baptiste, for the nice presentation. I find this technique very useful for looking for the protein-protein interaction and protein-DNA interaction, and also with this nice slide you showed with the points for some colors that I'm finding amazing. So thank you very much for the presentation. I want to apologize for the technique problems with the video. I didn't know that it doesn't work with this.
No, it's me. No problem.
And we have two questions for the with the assistant. One is, you show some sensitivity, and you said that it is very sensitive, this technique, but do you know the limit of the method for the detection of protein oligomerization?
You mean the limit of concentration of protein or amount of protein? Yeah, the limit of sensitivity. Exactly. No, I don't have I cannot give you a number here because it's really relative. So it's a quantitative approach, but relative quantitative approach. And I can just say that it's up to 1,000 more sensitive than a classic immunofluorescence.
Okay, so it's more sensitive.
Okay. Yeah, clearly more. Yeah. This is one of the main strengths of this technique.
Perfect. Yeah. And another question is, compared to the BIFC system, that it is biomolecular fluorescence complementation, is quite similar to this technique you presented. What is the advantages of this system compared to the BIF one?
Which technique, sorry, exactly?
Bimolecular fluorescence complementation. Do you know that?
No, I don't know exactly what is it. It is like Fret or Brett. You need to construct.
It's based on the association between two non-fluorescence fragments of one protein that is fluorescent.
Okay, I see. Yeah, okay. No, the main difference again is the fact that you don't have an amplification. Is this technique you said? So it's always the same problem. I mean, if you have a good interaction, and if you have a lot of interaction, it will work. But if you have a low amount of protein or very weak or transient interaction, you will miss it.
Okay, you cannot see it.
So that's why D-Link is very good, because you will amplify the signal, so you can work with endogenous protein level. And again, if you have a very weak interaction, you have a chance to see it with D-Link.
And for me, it's a pity not to use this technique to live cells, because you could see also like genetics and how it changes when the cells grow and move. So it is a pity, but well, every technique has a limitation.
No,
so.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point, because you cannot do that with D-Link because you work on fixed cells or tissue. So you cannot do live as you can do with Fret, for example. So yeah, good point. It's an important difference, yes.
Okay, so thanks again, Baptiste, for joining us with this Congress. And we, as a committee, we also thank Mer to have the stand with us in the platform. So thank you very much for all your support. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Enjoy your Congress, your virtual Congress now. So
COVID-free Congress. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. Bye-bye.